actually going to write our Python Hello World program, but with proper style. So just like in English class, we would always start a sentence with a capital and have some kind of punctuation. When we're typing code, there is a standard for every programming language that you should follow, because every program you write is not just for the computer to run, but it's also for every other programmer that comes and looks at your code so that they can understand what your program is supposed to be doing. So you have to write it in a standard so that everybody can understand it. So we're going to go through the process of writing that program and then using PyCode style to check your code to make sure that it's following that standard. So we're going to go right back to GitHub and we're going to create a new repository for this lesson. As always, we'll start with the course code and then the unit and then the programming language. And it'll go off and check to make sure that that repository doesn't already exist in your account, which hopefully it doesn't. Keep public, always have a README, and always add a gitignore for your programming language. And then you go and create your repository. It'll go off and create that GitHub repository, and we'll just wait and grab the URL so that we can clone this over to our IDE. So we're going to create another subfolder for today. Remember, when you're doing this, you'll notice that there are, once again, no spaces, no special characters except for the dash. Once we're in here, we create a new terminal at that location, and then we put in our git clone command and place in the URL. It'll go off and bring that repository down for us, and if you do ls, you'll see that that folder is now created. So we change directory and go into that folder, and hopefully there is just the README file. If it hasn't updated over here, remember you can go refresh and it'll go off and refresh the folder structure for you, and hopefully you'll be able to see it then. There you go. So now we're going to select our Python folder and go new from template and create our Python program. We're just going to erase the comments that are currently there, and we're going to write our standard Hello World program. Remember, it's untitled, so you have to make sure you save it as and give it a proper name. Once again, always call your program whatever it does. So if it's the Hello World program, call it hello_world. Once again, no spaces, no special characters. Go save, and then we can run our program with Python 3. And hopefully it'll spit out Hello World here for us. So our program is working and we're all good. Unfortunately, it might look like this is a really well explained program, but when we get into more complex Python programs, this doesn't actually help us as much as we would like. So I'm just going to copy some code that I have so that you don't have to watch me type. And this is our new Python program. Just going to correct a few things. There we go. There we go. This is our new Python program, and this is a better styled program. You'll notice in the middle we have our old Hello World program, just like we had before. But we have a whole bunch of other stuff. So I'm just going to go through line by line and explain what's going on. So this at the very top, oddly enough, is called the shebang. And although it's not necessarily needed in our development environment, it's a standard in Linux, so that when you tell the Linux program to, or Linux computer to run your program, it knows that it actually is a Python 3 program and where it should go to actually find that interpreter. So it's a standard that we use. Even though it's not necessarily needed for us, we keep placing it there. Then we put a space, and these are comments. Comments are not used by Python. They're actually literally thrown away. But the reason we have them is so that other people know who wrote the program, when did they write it, and what the heck is this thing really supposed to do? So that when someone else comes and looks at your code later on, if they have any questions, they can hunt you down and they can find out what your program does. After this, you put 2 spaces, and you'll notice that there is no, they're just carriage returns. There's no characters on either of these lines. Then on line number 8, we have this thing, DEF, which is in blue because it's a reserved word, stands for definition or defining, and it's a function. So what it's saying is I have this chunk of code and I'm going to call it main. And whenever you give me the command main, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to run this code. So it doesn't actually run it right away, it just remembers it so that it can do it later. You'll notice that there is 4 spaces here. One, it's actually a tab, but it's 4 spaces. That's indenting like you would do at the beginning of a paragraph. Okay, so this function kind of acts like a paragraph, and you can have more than one line of code here, but if you were to create another line of code, notice that it's also indented. When you're done with your function, you unindent, so you'll notice you're back here and you have 2 more spaces. Then you have this weird, funny thing. So this we're not going to use for a while, but eventually it will come in handy when we have a Python program that has more than one single file. So eventually we'll have programs with several files. Say you have a game that has like 8 different levels in it and you want to test it, but you actually want to test a level that is like level 7. You would have to go through and play all 6 levels, which is not that great for time-wise. So this lets you jump right into a particular module or Python program without having to go through all the other ones that you would have to. So what it's saying is, if this special Python variable called underscore underscore name underscore underscore, if that's equal to this weird thing, underscore underscore main underscore underscore, then go and run this function that we just created up here. So if you run your particular file and it's the very first file, then this variable gets set to this. So because we're going to run this file right away, it's going to ignore all these comments. It's going to remember this for the later on. It's going to do this check, and this special variable does equal this. So it says run this function. It'll go back up here. It'll print out hello world, and then it will stop. So it looks probably a lot more confusing, but later on, this will make our life easier. So I'm just going to save this, and we're going to run it, and you'll notice it does spit out hello world. Okay? So I know it looks more confusing, but later on it will help us. To check our code style, if we go back to our terminal and make sure that we're in the directory that has hello world, you can now use your pycode style, and then you just write that command, a space, and then the Python program that you want to check it against, and you press enter. And you'll notice nothing came back. So nothing came back because this program does follow proper style. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to make a mistake. I'm going to do something that I'm not supposed to. So instead of indenting 2 spaces and 4 spaces here, I'm only indenting 2, which is incorrect. Now, before I run this command again, I'm actually just going to run this program again. So you'll notice the program actually does run. So Python understands this, and Python will run it, but it's not the standard that most Python programs are written in. So if we go back here and we type in the same command again and we run it, you'll notice it says, hey, wait a minute. in your program, Hello World Python, on line 9, the third character, so we go back to our program, on line 9, the third character, 1, 2, 3, it was supposed to be indented a multiple of 4, but it's not indented a multiple of 4, and that's a problem. So when you actually make a mistake, it will spit out the error and it'll tell you what the problem is, and then you can go and correct your program. So I'm going to go and correct this again. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to save it. I'm going to run it again. And there you go. So if nothing happens, if you don't get any output, then you know that your program is following proper style. So that's an example, and this template you're going to be using from now on. So you should just, every time we write a Python program, copy this template, paste it in, then your name is always here. You can change the date. You will change the comment on what your program does. You will change this part of the code, and this part you'll just leave alone. Okay, so this is the standard template that we'll be using from now on.